Tell Like Jericho by Arnold J.Toynbee. Between Oxus and Jumna, I have not yet seen a town like Alice. Perhaps the Alice is unique, but today I have seen a tell like Jericho. I am standing on the summit of the greater of the two great mounds at Charsadda, the ancient capital of Gandhara, in the days before the Kushan emperors transferred the seat of government to Peshawar. The Charsadda mound is like a giant footstool planted squarely in the center of a gigantic fives court. This fives court's three walls are three mountain ranges, and its open end is demarcated by the broad river Indus. The court itself must measure more than 40 by 50, I am reckoning, not in feet, but in miles. From this commanding central point, one wins a panoramic view of the green plain extending in every direction. That line of poplars and that row of bluffs, they mark the course of one of the channels into which the Kabul River divides as it meanders diagonally across the plain to join the Indus. There must be half a dozen of these channels between the point where the Kabul and the Swat rivers unite and the further point where they reunite under the lee of the Takht mountains. These channels are like North European streams, Cherwell, Avon, Ouse, or Elbe. They flow at a bullock cart's placid pace, between green banks overhung by trees. Only in this land of intermittent rains, they are bled to feed innumerable canals and runnels that irrigate the fertile fields. The fields bear crops of wheat, rice, and sugarcane, and in the orchards, apricots alternate with oranges, plums, and pears. If you can imagine a blend between Lombardy and the Ghouta of Damascus, you will be able to conjure up Gandhara in your mind's eye. But Gandhara has one feature that is all its own: the rivers that break their way painfully through the mountain ranges and then spread themselves joyously over the plain. I had seen the Kabul River burst out at Warsak and the Indus below AMB. Today I have seen the Swat River performing the same feat at Abazai. The rock walls that have constricted its waters for miles on end here suddenly relax their grip, and the liberated torrent surges forward with the impetus of a shell shooting from the cannon's mouth. On the very threshold of the plain, a heavy toll of water is taken from the river to supply a grand canal. Yet below the takeoff, there is no noticeable diminution in the river's volume. Nourished by the snows of distant Chitral, the Swat River here must have at least as great a volume as the Thames at Reading. Yet this is merely one tributary of a tributary. No wonder the plain is well watered, and no wonder that one new irrigation system after another is being engineered in order to make the hitherto unused waters fructify. This plain, with its agricultural wealth, has been a key point on the overland route between the subcontinent and the rest of the old world. For how many thousand years has Gandhara played this part? You can measure the time by the height of this mound at Charsadda on which I am standing. The mound has been built up out of layers of the debris of sun-dried brick buildings. It has mounted a few feet more, each time that dust has returned to dust till it has risen at least as high as the mound of Jericho. Its stature represents a continuous history of human occupation extending over a span of perhaps 3,000 years. But at Jericho, the same stature must represent twice or three times that length of time. For at Jericho, the fields that nurtured the city were irrigated by a single spring, while the city of Charsadda was fed by this maze of rivers fertilizing the great green plain. Some 1,500 years have passed since the mound at Charsadda ceased to grow. Probably it never recovered from being sacked by the Huns in the 5th or 6th century of the Christian era, but the later deposits of civilization that are missing at Charsadda are present in the fort of Shabkadar, which I visited this morning. Here the upper story is Victorian British, the lower story is early 19th century Sikh, and the hill on which the Sikh invaders planted their stronghold might contain layers coeval with the latest at Charsadda. Today, the fort at Shabkadar is garrisoned by the Pakistan Army's frontier force. Sikhs and British in their turn have come and gone, and the monuments of their fleeting occupation testify to the transitoriness of human efforts and achievements. Yet some human achievements do endure. Travel on eastwards from Charsadda to Takht-bae, and you will find a monument that has quietly conquered time. Takht-bae is an isolated mountain that rises abruptly from the plain above the village of Charsadda. It does not rise very high by comparison with the glistening sierras of the Hindu Kush and the Himalayas, which are visible from the summit of Takht-bae in clear weather. Measured from plain level, the altitude of Takht-bae may be not more than about 1,000 feet, but its precipitous flanks and razor-sharp ridges make it a true mountain in miniature, and its steep shoulders carry the massive remains of a Buddhist monastery. Here the monks attained the goal of their austere spiritual exercises. They won their way out of this world of appetite and recurrence into the serenity of the timeless state. And this serene timelessness pervades their empty courts and cells. Down below, the plain is still fast bound in the grip of karma. Down there, crops and cultures have never ceased to change. Charsadda is an archaeologist's happy hunting ground. It stands on the site of a city of the Gandharan age. Climb the peak of the mountain from the monastery and look over the top, and you will see below you a post-war sugarcane crushing mill. On the plain, the wheel of life is turning at an accelerating pace. But up there, on the mountain, all is still.